Denver Broncos have two players that will be playing in the Pro Bowl. One as a starter and one as an alternate. Not to mention, the Broncos are getting healthy for Sunday's game against the Los Angeles Rams. And could Broncos head coach Nathaniel Hackett keep his job as they build momentum towards the end of the season? We dive into all of this and much more on today's brand new episode, Locked on Broncos.
You are Locked on Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, Broncos Country? Welcome into a brand new episode, Locked on Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Broncos have a Pro Bowler named as a starter, a prolific young player. They also have a player named as an alternate. You get that on today's episode, Locked on Broncos. Just want to say thank you so much to everybody in Broncos Country for tuning in, making Locked on Broncos your first listen of the day every single day, free and available everywhere you get your podcast in audio format, or whether you're watching us on YouTube. Do us a favor, hit that subscribe or that follow button so you never miss a day's worth of Denver Broncos news, content, coverage, and more. We have you covered every single day, all year long. From the South Stands to the end zone, I'm your host, as always, Cody Roark, Broncos reporter for Mile High Sports, joined alongside, as always, by my co-host and friend, Sayre Bedinger, site expert, predominantlyorange.com. Sayre, you know, I feel like as negative as the season has been from a win-loss standpoint, the expectations have not matched up to what we had expected. I do feel like in the last couple of weeks, and potentially to end the season, the Broncos have built some momentum. And with that, I mean, momentum comes hype. There's some entertainment involved. I think we've seen the Broncos defense ball out the last couple of weeks. But also, one key player on the Broncos defense was named to his first ever Pro Bowl as a starter. So, mile high salute, Patrick Surtain.
That's right, Patrick Surtain. He had a great season, Cody. We've talked about him all throughout the year, whether it was all the way back in January when you're kind of talking about things to really look forward to this coming season, or just as the season approached, guys that we knew that we would be able to bank on for the Denver Broncos in 2022. And I would say pretty much everything as advertised, if not even better, from Pat Surtain. Yes, the game against Davante Adams and DJ Moore the following week, couple of hiccups there this season, but for the most part, been able to rely on him every single week to be a lockdown corner on his side of the ball. Cody, it's kind of surprising. He's the first Broncos cornerback to make it to the Pro Bowl in his second season. He's obviously gone out there and produced a couple interceptions over the last 2 weeks. I wasn't sure if he was going to get any interceptions this year based on the fact teams just barely throwing his direction this whole season. But man, it's really great to see him get some numbers to go along with the other production that we know he has. We've broken it down before, the completion percentage against and the quarterback rating when you throw at Patrick Surtain and all these different things. I mean, he has been a superstar. It's cool. I know that it's the Pro Bowl. A lot of it is popularity contest, but it actually, like, people got to understand now, the fans vote is only part of things now. The coaches vote, the players vote. So it all kind of factors in. So he's getting respected, not just by the mass of, NFL fandom. He's getting respect from coaches around the league, from players around the league. So getting voted in is a little bit more meaningful now as compared to when it was just the popularity vote in years prior. So great to see him get this kind of recognition for sure.
Well, and for us, too, it's like when we watch Patrick Surtain, I mean, I see him every day at practice. The thing that stands out to me, you don't, just looking at him, he does not look like a second-year player in the National Football League. He looks like he's like a 5 to 6 year vet in the league, the way he carries himself. Like I said, he's just a humble dude, very nice guy to talk to in the locker room as well. But this is a guy that's so technical. I mean, he perfects his technique. It's hard to say, right? Because we've had conversations. We even had it last year, and everyone's like, oh, don't compare him to Champ Bailey. But I always go back to, talking to Champ Bailey. Champ has told me, he's like, man, this guy, he's special. Like, the way that he plays, he is just so technically refined. He's like, he has a chance to potentially be one of the greatest cornerbacks of all time if he continues his trajectory as to how he's playing. And, hey, you know what? If that's the case, the Broncos could have another legendary Hall of Fame cornerback in the future in Pat Surtain. Hopefully that is the case here. But speaking of another guy, too, that is getting, elected to the Pro Bowl as an alternate, Justin Simmons. He's an alternate at the free safety position. Obviously, Minkah Fitzpatrick got placed in front of him. But for Justin, I think his production speaks for itself, Sayre. I mean, 5 interceptions and only playing in 9 games this season so far. Part of me wonders, what if he never missed any games? Would he have more than 5 interceptions? It's possible because he's had, I think, 4 interceptions in the last 3 or 4 weeks combined? Like, that's pretty damn good production right there. Obviously, I was talking with Steve Atwater before practice yesterday, and I said, hey, how does that feel? He's like, man, it's awesome that he passed me. He's like, I love that. That's great because they have a great relationship together. But for Justin, I think it kind of signifies like, hey, he is one of the best safeties in the National Football League, and I think it guarantees, like, when you see how he plays and you see his production and how he's done it back-to-back years, it's hard to argue that there are a lot of safeties out there that are better than Justin Simmons. He is the real deal.
He is, and it's kind of surprising to see him not just kind of get voted in based on like I don't know if there's a better term for this, but kind of just like seniority, right? I mean, he's had, like you said, 3 straight years of 5 interceptions. He's never not had multiple interceptions in a season as an NFL player. And that was dating back to, remember, when he was drafted into the no-fly zone. He was just a secondary type of guy in that secondary. So he's had multiple interceptions every single year. I feel like Justin Simmons is deserving of being in as a, not an alternate type of selection, but certainly you understand the process and you get that there's other guys out there that have probably played every game, but man, 5 interceptions in 9 games. I don't know what more you would have to do to really prove your worth as a potential Pro Bowl player, Cody. So again, great to see Broncos players getting recognition. I know last year they didn't have a single player voted in, and which is again kind of crazy, especially as when you talk about Justin Simmons, right? I mean, he should be in the game every year. There's just like they should have a locker for him if there's like a Pro Bowl locker room or something. They should just have his nameplate ready. That's what I think in regards to it. And I actually inadvertently, Cody, wore a Pro Bowl hat today here. So, I mean, look at that. The stars have aligned, I guess. I didn't even realize. But, man, yeah, it's great to see Pat Surtain and Justin Simmons getting recognized. I don't know, off the top of my head, Cody, Pro Bowl snubs for the Broncos, maybe Alex Singleton. I feel like he could have been potentially in the mix there. I feel like he's had a good enough season, especially statistically, but certainly when you turn on the tape, he's had a great season for the Broncos. I think he's one guy that I would say if somebody on the team right now is getting snubbed in terms of, man, that guy should definitely be there, maybe Singleton is a guy that should be getting a Pro Bowl nod this season.
I'd even make an honorable mention as well for Draymond Jones and just his impact he's had on the defensive interior. He's been one of the best interior defensive linemen in the league this season. Broncos Country, let us know. Tweet us on Twitter at Cody Roark NFL, at Sayre Bedinger, at Locked On Broncos, who you believe on the Broncos roster is a Pro Bowl snub this year. Let us know who you believe should have made it in, or if you're watching on YouTube, comment it down below in the YouTube comment section. One of the things we're going to get to, though, the Broncos are getting healthy ahead of Sunday's game against the Los Angeles Rams. We'll dive into that. What is Russell Wilson's status? Is he full go? Will he be limited? We'll dive into that on today's episode, Lockdown Broncos. This episode of the show is brought to you by friends at Turo, and Turo is the world's largest car-sharing marketplace. With Turo, you could book any car that you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the U.S., UK, Canada, and Australia. You could book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip, or you could get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. Or you can find affordable economy cars if you're on a budget and you just need to get from A to B. Test drive that new electric vehicle you've had your eye on to see how it fits in your everyday life. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Forget boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. And our friends over there at NHTSA with a very special holiday message for you. And did you know that driving high is considered driving under the influence? That's right. Driving under the influence of marijuana is against the law in every state, even in states where marijuana is legal. That means driving high could get you a DUI. And if you think law enforcement officers can't tell when you're driving high, you're wrong. Your friends can tell, your coworkers can tell, even your parents can tell. Everyone can tell. So what makes you think law enforcement officers don't know when you're driving high? Driving under the influence of marijuana can slow your response time and change how you perceive time and speed. So even if you think you're fine to drive when you're high, you're not. Because the bottom line is, if you feel different, you drive different. And driving high is driving under the influence. So remember, drive high, get a DUI, paid for by NHTSA. All right, so continue on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. We dive deeper into a Sunday preview. Christmas Day, the stockings are going to be hanging up on the wall. Will the Broncos get a win, or will they get coal in their stockings against the Los Angeles Rams? Sayre, I thought you did a fantastic job with Travis Rogers of the Locked On Rams podcast, previewing this matchup, breaking everything down. So, folks, if you missed the episode of the show, go to yesterday's episode, Locked On Broncos, in your favorite audio podcasting platform or YouTube, and watch or listen to Sayre and Travis break down all the storylines for Sunday's Christmas Day matchup. Continuing on here, though, Sayre, I think the key this week, right, is the Broncos the last 2 weeks. We've seen the offense play better. Now, I'd say against the Chiefs, they played better from a passing standpoint. Didn't necessarily run the ball as much because they were down by a large deficit. This past week against the Arizona Cardinals in the second half of action, one of the things that we noticed with them was that they were able to run the ball effectively with Marlon Mack, Latavius Murray, and they really ran the football to set up the pass. Do you think, in your opinion, will the Broncos come out slinging the ball against the Rams, or do you think that with Russell Wilson there, they're going to build on what was working last week, run the ball to set up the pass?
I think we're going to see a lot of running the ball to set up the pass, Cody. But what's interesting to me, and it kind of dawned on me as I was talking to Travis in that, the crossover episode, I'm kind of thinking like, okay, if Courtland Sutton comes back for this game, it's going to be fascinating to see how the coaches really utilize those receivers, with Jerry Jeudy having a couple of breakout games this season, really excelling in that wide receiver one role. Now you insert Courtland Sutton into the mix. You got a healthy Greg Dulcich out there. The stars are kind of aligned for the Broncos to go out there and sling it against a Rams defense that I think they've struggled quite a bit this year, Cody. I mean, no injuries have played into that, but they've struggled quite a bit defensively this season. So I'm not saying the Broncos are going to be able to go out there and have their way. I think that's certainly a bit over the top given what we've seen for the majority of this season. But the last 2 weeks, you've had maybe the best performance of the season from Russell Wilson, right? You've had 24 plus points in consecutive games. The running game got going against, obviously, this past weekend against the Cardinals, 168 total rushing yards. Cody, people that are listening can't see, but man, I'm wearing SpongeBob right now. I'm ready. I'm ready for the Broncos to start rolling offensively. I don't care how late in the season it is. I think they are going to use the run to set up the pass. You obviously have Latavius Murray playing well, Marlon Mack showing some things, Chase Edmonds coming back off injured reserve. So I like the way things are shaping up for the Denver Broncos, and I can't wait to turn on Nickelodeon and see SpongeBob and Patrick, getting after it with these guys. I think this is going to be a fun game. I don't know. Maybe I'm just way too optimistic, Cody. Maybe I'm overreacting to a victory. But man, I feel like the offense, things are setting up and shaping up in this game against the Rams, especially you go to a field where you're not playing in these icy cold conditions. You get really good weather conditions out there in LA. I think obviously the offense is shaping up to do some good things against the Rams.
Well, I think also it's worth mentioning, like, one of the underrated guys, Andrew Beck's return last week, I think was pretty big for the Broncos, especially in the run game. There were some things that he did coming back under a cross motion where he would just kick out the end guy and it free up. I just saw more patient running, though, with Marlon Mack and Latavius Murray. Like, there were times where they'd go to hit the hole, pause for a second, see it, get skinny, and get north immediately. That, I think, is what benefited it as well. And obviously, we're going to be eyeing the whole situation. Quinn Miners has a shiner on his eye. We're talking to him in the locker room there. So he got poked, and I think they're going to obviously take things there. I think he's going to be good to go to play in this game. Dalton Reisner, obviously, he's been banged up and dealing with some injuries as well, but he's been out at practice this week. I will say, Courtland Sutton coming back is huge. And Nathaniel Hackett even told us yesterday that one of the things is, even with Courtland coming back, they're going to move him and Jerry all over the field. And so the hope is that Jerry can open up opportunities for Courtland. Courtland can open up opportunities for Jerry. And we'll see how everything else kind of fits in with that. That, I think, is something I want to see the most, is like, when Courtland comes back, how can Nathaniel Hackett and the Broncos offense, Clint Kubiak, still make it to where these guys are moving around and being put in positions to succeed and have one-on-one matchups to win? I mean, that's where we've really seen the Broncos struggle at the first half of this season here offensively. To me, that is a huge key that I'm absolutely looking forward to seeing on Sunday. And then outside of that, too, watching Courtland in practice this week, I mean, he looks good, right? He's limited. He's got the limited designation, which usually means, okay, he's going to be doing individual drills. He's moving really well. He's accelerating really well. He's catching the ball across the middle of the field and doing things with it. So far, what we've seen in practice this week, to me, I think that signifies that, okay, hey, he's probably going to play on Sunday, which will be good because the Broncos will have another option, especially with Jalen Ramsey out there. He's going to draw some coverage assignments there. I am eager to see if the Broncos can take advantage of Jalen Ramsey having a rough year, but this is also the perfect scenario because Jalen Ramsey has struggled and has given up so many catches, so many big plays this year for him to have a really good game as well. So it's kind of a double-edged sword for the Broncos, in my opinion. Keep feeding Jerry Jeudy, open up opportunities for guys like Cortland Sutton, Greg Dulcich, and you know what? Maybe running backs out of the backfield in the passing game. Can the Broncos execute the screen game at a higher level? To me, I'm excited to see if they could do that.
And no Aaron Donald in this game, right? So that obviously factors into everything as well. So that's what Travis in the Locked On crossover, he told me he would be stunned if he plays at all the rest of the season. So I guess maybe a bit presumptuous of me to say absolutely not, but certainly you don't expect him to play. I guess at this point in time, we'll see if there's a surprise later in the week, but with Aaron Donald potentially not playing, and even if he does, I mean, you get a test either way, but if he doesn't play, Cody, that to me gives you an opportunity to really take advantage of whatever matchups you're looking at. And that kind of speaks to what you said in regards to moving Cortland Sutton around the field and moving Jerry Jeudy around and really allowing this offensive coaching staff for the Denver Broncos to continue to show growth. Because look, at this point, remember against the Jacksonville Jaguars, remember the ESPN crew kind of making fun of them for saying, hey, this looks like a high school level offense out there in terms of the things that they were trying to execute, the things that they were trying to do. I think as the season has gone along, guys get more comfortable in the offense. Guys do, they sort of start to get a better feel for things. It's kind of like you start to speak it as a first language, right? So now you're going out there. Clint Kubiak has been calling the plays for a while. I think you go out there and you got to see this coaching staff be able to manipulate these matchups against a team like the Rams. And frankly, I mean, a better coach team like Sean McVay is a better and more established coach than Nathaniel Hackett. I don't think that's earth shattering to anyone. But if Nathaniel Hackett and his staff can go out there and manipulate some matchups, I don't care who is or isn't healthy for the Rams. That's a sign of progress for this staff. It's a sign of progress for this team, the players, everybody, and everything gelling together. I know it's too late. There's no more playoffs possible, but man, you would love to see it against a team like the Rams, especially with Jalen Ramsey still back there at corner.
Well, one of the things, too, for this Broncos team, they've got some momentum here at the end stretch of the season. They have an opportunity to do some exciting things. However, not sure if they can carry any momentum into the offseason, but one thing to monitor, if the Broncos do finish out the season on a high note, does that mean that Nathaniel Hackett could be safe for 2023? That's something that you're going to get on today's episode, Lockdown Broncos. But this episode of the show is brought to you by our friends over there, betonline.net. Betonline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball and World Cup. We've got it all at betonline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and the easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Could Broncos head coach Nathaniel Hackett potentially be safe if the Broncos end the season on a high note? This is a very interesting development considering how the players have played for Nathaniel Hackett, considering that Nathaniel Hackett has not lost the locker room. The Broncos have been playing better offensively, and since he's kind of stepped into that role as the head coach, he mentioned it to us this week at practice. He's more of a senior consultant for the offense, but he lets Justin Outen and Clint Kubiak run the show on the offensive side of the ball. Could this delegation process potentially save Nathaniel Hackett's job if the Broncos win at least 2 out of their 3 final games remaining on the schedule? Sayre, this is an interesting question. I'm eager for your thoughts on it.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting ride. I mean, as Gary Kubiak used to famously say, right, we're fixing to find out, because I kind of get the vibe right now, Cody, and I'm just, you know me. I like to put on the tinfoil hat sometimes. I like to kind of read the tea leaves. I like to follow the breadcrumbs a little bit. I don't think that there's anything in my mind right now, the way that I read things, I don't think there's anything that tells me Nathaniel Hackett is 100% coming back for 2023. But at this particular point in time, given the fact the Broncos still have an opportunity to win, like you said, potentially 2 out of their last 3 games, or man, maybe even all 3 of them, that would be fascinating to see. But if they can go out there and score a bunch of points and win a couple more games here, I'll be very, very interested, because you have a lot of different factors right now potentially playing into, hey, we're trying to give Hackett every opportunity to show that he can still be the guy going beyond the season. Cortland Sutton with a hamstring injury. I don't think you rush him back to the field as quickly as the Broncos have, unless you're trying to get the best guys out there. Same with Chase Edmonds. Same with, frankly, Randy Gregory, getting him back out there to play, as you know, with meaningless games, right? I know we talked about Randy wanted to get back out there as well. But to me, you give Hackett an opportunity. You pull Russell Wilson from last week's game, and you give him an opportunity to go out there and win a game with Brett Rippon in an NFL setting against a veteran head coach. Cliff Kingsbury's been coaching the Cardinals for a few years now. There's all these different things that are kind of, Mike Kliss, 9 News Insider, good friend of ours, he posted an article talking about the Broncos getting bad luck in terms of the referees that they've gotten this year for their games, which has helped contribute to leading the league in penalties. And you have all these different factors. The Broncos being the most injured team in the league. I saw a graphic. It was like the banged up score or something like that. The Broncos had the worst banged up score through 14 weeks of the NFL season of any team in the league. So you look at all these different things and you can't help but wonder, okay, all this stuff kind of popping up at this time of year in particular kind of leads me to believe maybe Hackett isn't so on the hot seat as we think. And I do think, Cody, the Broncos lose these last few games. They look terrible on offense. I think that you got to make a change from an optics standpoint. But the way things are sitting right now, you have an opportunity to go out there, beat the Rams and Sean McVay on Christmas Day, regardless of what their roster looks like. Then you have an opportunity against the Chiefs and the Chargers. I can't help but think at this point in time, nothing definitively has been decided, at the very least, regarding Hackett and his future.
And I think you make some very valid points, right? And the win-loss standpoint where the Broncos have been, obviously, and the fact that offensively they have looked inept for a consistent part of the season. I understand that's why Broncos fans want Nathaniel Hackett gone. But you are right. You touched on some things. Injuries, other factors. Denver's got to be a little bit more focused on the execution side offensively, which I feel like they've done, right? Granted, you don't want it to happen week 13, week 14. That's way too late in the season. But when you factor in all the other injuries, all the different circumstances, I think that if ownership approaches Nathaniel Hackett during the offseason and says, hey, we appreciate you delegating. We appreciate you kind of stepping in, just being the head coach, not calling plays. Here are some changes we should make on your staff. I think if that's a situation that happens and they approach him with that and he does it, I think more likely, I think there is a chance he does keep his job. And, I think what kind of message also does it send to the players, right? Because like I said, players love Nathaniel Hackett. Fans can feel however they want to feel. However they feel is entirely their business. But the reality of the situation is these guys love Nathaniel Hackett as a coach. They love him as a person. And I think that you're going to see, if something does happen, you're going to see a lot of people speak out like, hey, not everything was Hackett's fault this season. Were there areas he could have been better? Absolutely. But we all said he is a first-year head coach. We anticipated things weren't going to be perfect. We didn't know it was going to be this bad, though, Sayre. But at some points, like, okay, first-year head coach, are you going to allow him to learn from that? At least give him a second year to be able to rectify that? And if the same issues keep happening in year 2, or maybe even midway through his second year, then you make a decision. So I'm on board with that. I mean, I'm honestly okay with the Broncos giving Hackett another year. Granted, there's going to be a lot of changes in the offseason. To me, I think it's something to keep an eye on, Sayre. I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, I think, like you said, if you say, hey, we appreciate you taking responsibility for the shortcomings that you had and delegating things to other people, and we still believe in you as a head coach. Look, the ownership group, they didn't hire Nathaniel Hackett. I mean, he has to basically, this year and them being put into place after purchasing the team, it's kind of been an interview on the job for him. So it all depends on kind of how they view him as the leader of the locker room. Like we've mentioned, he hasn't lost the locker room at this point. And I think that speaks volumes to him as a coach. Like he is a player's coach. We knew that coming in. He likes to be buddies with the players. He wants to be, more personal with them. He wants to be like, how's your family doing, instead of, first thing football when they walk into the building. So there's all these different factors that come into play as him as a leader of the team. The question will be, what kind of changes would he be forced to make on his staff? Because I think at that point, you do have to make changes. You do have to get a new offensive line coach. You do have to bring in possibly, and I'd say maybe the most important, a new offensive coordinator, right? I don't know that Clint Kubiak necessarily going to be that guy going forward, but it's going to be very interesting to see, Cody. And I'm with you. Like, I don't necessarily want the Broncos to just stick with Hackett just for the sake of sticking with him and just saying like, look, every guy deserves a second chance. I mean, that's not how the NFL works, and we understand that. But at the same time, make a couple tweaks to the staff here and there. If you really buy into Hackett as the leader of this team, and it'll also be really interesting to see like how much do they put on Russell Wilson for this season. That will factor in to whether or not Hackett comes back, I think, as well, to say like, look, Russ did let you down in situations. These conversations, you wish you could be a fly on the wall, right? You wish you could kind of hear what they're saying. So that's kind of where I'm at, Cody. And I just wanted to take a quick second to say as well, for those that missed the news on Thursday, sadly, the passing of Broncos former running back Ronnie Hillman, just a tragic situation at the age of 31. I just wanted to give a little in memory of Ronnie Hillman, because I really loved watching him play back in the 2015 season. Cody, I don't think the Broncos get the number 1 seed in the AFC without Ronnie Hillman. And I can't help but wonder, based on the fact that you had to play the AFC championship in Denver instead of New England at that time, I can't help but wonder how much that changed the trajectory of their season. He had 7 touchdowns that year, led the team in touchdowns. Such an exciting player to watch. I mean, when he was on and when he was playing well, I mean, he was so fast, so explosive. So sad to hear the news of Ronnie Hillman passing, and just prayers and thoughts go out to his family.
No, spot on there too. And it's been a sad year and a half. I mean, the Broncos losing two members of the Super Bowl 50 team, obviously DT last year. Now Ronnie Hillman just kind of puts things into perspective. While we all love football, life is way more important, and you never know. You never know about tomorrow. So always tell your loved ones that you love them and whatnot. Try to do good for other people in this world. And with that said, folks, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Locked On Broncos. Sayre and I will be back Christmas Day with a post-game recap of the Broncos game against the LA Rams. Hopefully, a win is in store here for Broncos Country. On top of that, stay safe with this cold winter weather in the Midwest, freezing conditions. Make sure you stay inside, stay warm, stay safe. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening to Locked On Broncos. We'll be back on Sunday for a post-game report of the show.